back to another episode of Same Same पर Different. Guys, financial planning and future planning सबके लिए बहुत stressful है, right? Where to invest, what are the right products? But it becomes very complicated and tricky when there's a person with special needs in the family, right? So I thought, why not invite an expert on this matter और उनसे ही पूछते हैं that what are the similarities and what are the differences in planning for the future when there's a child with special needs in the family. So today we have Hansi Mehrotra with me. Hansi is a dear friend and she also has a show called The Money Hunts, right? And Hansi has this magical way of simplifying all of these financial concepts which takes the fear away. So welcome Hansi. You're an expert in financial planning and you have a lot of experience in this industry. But for the benefit of our audience, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, so I kind of don't like calling myself an expert. I think it's like calling yourself a thought leader, right? You never do that. So let me just tell you my qualifications. I have got a postgrad degree in finance, which is a chartered financial analyst, and another one. I've spent 20 odd years in investment consulting.
Okay.
I've lived overseas. I've lived in Australia, Singapore, and now I live here. What I do now, I've taken my 20 years experience and I make content and act as a financial coach for people who don't understand money or who get intimidated by it.
So it's said that there are three most important aspects of planning, right? So एक तो कहते हैं सबसे important है कि अपनी will लिख दीजिए, right? Second, they say set up a trust. Third, they say all the documentation like, having a unique disability identity card, a UDID card, your legal guardianship. So all of these government documentations are also really important. Can we talk a little bit about forming a trust and why do you think that's important?
People think that will serves the purpose.
Right.
कि will में लिख दिया कि if I have these kids and they're minor or with special needs, कि ये guardian होंगे और ये उनके whatever assets I have will be applied to my the looking after my kids.
Sure.
The problem is that may not happen. Okay, and a will is only a one-time transfer and there's nothing you can do to control it.
Right.
So, and will also has a lot of other issues. So that's why people start talking about having a trust.
Okay.
Now, the perception is that trust is only relevant to people who are very rich.
Yeah.
Okay, every rich person has a trust. Why do I need it? इतने तो मेरे पास पैसे भी नहीं हैं.
Huh.
But if you have minor children or kids with special needs,
Right.
you have to think about what will happen to the assets that you are passing on for looking after your kids. What if the people you're trusting are not looking after your kids?
Right.
So setting up a trust can ensure that that actually happens.
So if I can simplify it, it's a structure, it's a legal structure, जहाँ पे जो parents हैं, जो owner या settler होंगे, वो उनके जो assets और wealth होंगे, they will put it into the trust, right? फिर वो choose करेंगे कि कौन trustees होंगे, of who will manage this properly for the beneficiary, which in this case would be people, their child with special needs, correct?
Right.
Hansi, क्या before someone sets up a trust, उन्हें क्या पता होना चाहिए, right? Let's talk about that. So let's prepare our audience a little bit if they want to set up a trust for their child. ठीक है?
Okay, so the first thing to know that there is no standard trust,
Right.
especially in India.
Right.
There are two sort of main types. There is a living trust and there's a testamentary trust.
Okay.
Living trust is when you set it up when you are living. Okay, so you can see how it's working. A testamentary trust is when you write a will and in the will you say, should something happen to me, then my assets go into a trust.
Okay.
A lot of people consider that because it means that they can control their assets while they're alive and only when something happens to them, it goes into trust.
Right.
So that's a good idea, but there are implications for that as well.
Right.
Because the will still has to go through probate and all that.
Right.
So that doesn't save that. That's one. The second thing is there could be revocable and irrevocable. Okay, so you can put your money into a trust structure and while you're living, if you change your mind, you can revoke it. But that doesn't save you from the tax implications.
Got it.
Okay, and then there's irrevocable.
Right.
Then there are other ways to control the trust. So I'm mentioning this because I think one of the main reasons why people don't set up a trust is they fear losing control.
Yeah.
कि मतलब मेरे पैसे हैं, I should be able to change my mind.
Absolutely.
But when you have a kid, you know the kid exists. Then what mind are you going to change, right? You always want the best for your child.
Right.
You always have to think about should something happen to you today, should something happen to your spouse, should something happen to all your immediate family.
Right.
It could be that you're having a holiday together,
Right.
right?
Right.
Should something happen,
Yeah.
so I think you do need to look beyond that
Mhm.
and say, should something happen, what should happen to my assets? Let me think about setting up a trust. And if control is the issue, then there are ways around it.
Right. Right. No, that's a very common question that comes up. That's a very valid fear also to have, right?
Yeah.
Especially when there's a special needs child, तो parent को लगता है कि उनके जैसा ध्यान कोई नहीं रख सकता उनके child का, and which is very true. But what I always try and tell them is a trust is a structure that's controlled by them. उन्होंने guidelines set किए हैं. They are the owner. They're still in control. So what I want to ask here is that let's say that it's a living trust and it's a revocable trust. But a lot of people they haven't decided कि उन्हें अपनी property के साथ क्या करना है. You know, maybe it's a disputed property. Maybe they haven't planned their finances and their assets as well as they would have wanted to before setting up the trust.
The first thing is you should get a bunch of professionals involved.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So before you start thinking about these things, so get your financial advisor, get a lawyer, get an accountant for tax, and get a trust professional involved. And I think someone like you who knows the issues involved with a special needs child, I think that would be great for you to coordinate all of these, right? But certainly you need to look at the implications of all of these things. For example, if I already own some assets, adding them means stamp duty. There's tax issues. So that's why I'm saying it really depends on the situation.
Right.
So you should get advice.
Yeah. So that's exactly what we're doing at Reservoir. So we're trying to make it like a one-stop shop. ताकि parent को ना सिर्फ हमसे coordinate करना पड़े. And then all of these experts, even if they have financial advisors in their family, which they've trusted, and you know they have a relationship with them for very long. So we kind of create an ecosystem which works the best for the parent.
Great, that's fantastic. That's good to hear. And especially when it comes to the selection of the trustee.
Right.
Okay, so that's the issue that's
the most important.
It's most important, right? In setting up. So usually, what is the role of a trustee? The trustee has to look after the assets of the trust. So they need to have some knowledge about how to pick and look after the assets, right? If they're investing. And they also need to be aware of all the regulatory issues in terms of tax, compliance, administration, paying distributions to the beneficiaries, all of that. Most people select a friend or family as a trustee, which sometimes is not a good idea because the trustee may not be around longer than you are.
Right.
Also, it's a big ask to put on someone ki, compared to an executor of a will, it's a one-time thing.
Right.
A trustee is an ongoing responsibility.
Sure.
So there are professional trustees in the market, जिनका पूरा दिन का काम यही होता है. So I think it's better to consider someone like that. Then the issue of control again comes in. कि वो लोग मेरी बात सुनेंगे या नहीं सुनेंगे. So there's another way around it through a professional trustee company.
Right.
You set up a trust company,
Right.
which could be your company. You can be on the board, so that way you can exert indirect control by being on the trustee board. But let me put it to you. Now you have been part of a trust for someone. For your brother, right?
Right.
So can you just talk us through? In fact, that would be great for my sort of case study as well. Talk us through. How did the trust get set up, and what were you? Were you trustee? Were you beneficiary? And what happened, and what the issues you faced?
Right. So we set up a trust a long time ago, and when we set it up, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, right? So this fact that you said that a trustee should be aware that what are their responsibilities, like I had no idea. In fact, when the first trust was set up, it was set up for my brother who has autism, right? So he was at that time a teenager. My father had health issues, so किसी ने advice किया कि trust बना लो. All the money that you want to put aside for your children will be safe, right? And we tried going out like find professionals.
And how many years younger was he? To you?
My brother?
Yeah.
He's 4 years younger than me.
Okay, so that's another question. Just on that point, some people ask whether should we set up one trust for both our kids, or if we have multiple kids, or should we set up separate trusts? So in your case, the trust was set up for the benefit of your brother.
Yeah.
And you were?
I was a beneficiary, even though it was set up only for the benefit of my brother. But at that time, it was just something that we didn't understand. And because, वो जो lawyer था हमारा, he was so used to making a trust for both the children that he kind of set it up in a similar fashion. What he didn't understand was that my family is different and our requirements are different. The other blunder, and I'm not even ashamed to say this, that we didn't realize at that time was that both my maternal and paternal grandmothers were the trustees on the trust. And in hindsight, that's absolutely obnoxious, right? कि मतलब वो तो मेरे parents को भी outlive नहीं करेंगे. What is the point of setting up this entire trust then? And that is when sort of, and also because we had a living trust, right? We had the chance to test it out. So when the time actually came, when I remember my dad was unwell, we wanted to go back and figure out what all investments were in the trust, what all money was in the trust. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go around it. I had no idea. Which is why then I realized, no, this is not the way I can function with my family's entire wealth. So went back a couple of steps, started all over it again, found a professional this time who now understood our situation. Right?
So in this case, this is exactly what not to do. Having your grandmothers as trustees.
Yeah.
One, because as they were older.
Yeah.
Two, were they even aware of the responsibilities of a trustee? Do they mean what it is to be a fiduciary?
So very interesting that you spelled out the difference so exactly, right? That having a fiduciary responsibility is not the same as caring for somebody.
Correct.
Yeah. Right? So उनको मेरे dad अगर उनको कभी भी कोई भी चीज या फिर बोलेंगे कि तुम ध्यान रख लोगे बच्चों का, that's all they understood कि ध्यान रखना है, हाँ रख लेंगे, So it's not as simple as that.
Correct.
And now that I am a trustee on his trust in the new trust structure, I think I kind of know okay, fine, every month the returns have to be filed.
So now, hang on, take a step back. So the new trust you set up, did you have to dismantle the old trust and set up a new one, or were you able to change the terms?
So we were able to change the terms, and again this time we found a professional who understood the way the family functions. Right?
Okay. And now who's the trustee?
So now I am the trustee, and I have two of my cousins who are similar. One is 4 years older to me, and another one is 8 years older to me. But we're all the same generation, right? So now 3 sisters were the trustee. Also because my family is in Chandigarh, so both of my cousins are based out of Chandigarh, which is why we chose them. Right? They also have a certain level of understanding about my brother's disability. What all his needs are. They've grown up with him, so there's a connection over there.
Right.
But I want to touch upon the topic of a trusteeship company, like you said, because a lot of times family members nahi hote. Siblings nahi hote, single child hota hai. Or even if there are cousins or siblings, they live abroad. Which is when I think you're very right, then there is no shame, there is no harm, there is no... I'm trying to still understand why parents have so much hesitation and resistance in seeking this professional service. Like you said, one reason could be losing control. But then again, at the cost of repetition, right? There are ways around it, which is what the audience needs to kind of understand.
Yeah, I think control is one, cost is another one.
Cost is another.
But what is your experience? What is the range of cost, or what would you recommend कि कितना होना चाहिए before you set up a trust?
That's a very fair question. So what I usually say is that it depends on what the cost of setting up a trust would be like, right? So depending on how complex your family situation is, depending on how much assets that you have. Even if your total asset value is 1 crore, I think it's totally worth setting up a trust, right? And I can't say exactly how much would it cost you, but a fair estimate would be like a percentage as a setup fee.
1%.
1% of your asset cost.
Which is fair, which is if you go to a financial advisor, even that will cost you about that much.
Right.
So a crore would mean that your cost of setting up are sort of less than 1 lakh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And another very important thing that I tell parents of children with special needs is कि I agree expensive है, ठीक है, महंगा है, but option क्या है? If you don't set up a trust, जितना तुम्हारे पास पैसा है, how is it going to go to your child? And definitely go to your child and everybody. Otherwise, there are people who are waiting to come after your money. So, what is your next option if not a trust, right? And like you said, setup fee alag baat hai. Then there's a cost to maintaining the trust, managing the trust over a long time. That's also a cost. And fair enough.
Of course, the trustee won't do it for free, right?
The trustee won't do it
for
for free.
So I think that's the point, again, tying it back with a family member or a friend being a trustee.
Yeah.
If they have a day job,
and
they don't know how to fulfill the responsibilities of a trustee,
right.
Then you need to hire a professional trustee and pay them.
Right.
So that's an ongoing cost as well.
Right. And again, I want to say this, that a trustee does not have to be the caregiver of the child, right? Trustee basically kya hai? Anybody who professionally knows how to manage the trust.
Right.
Well, this has been amazing. I think even though financial planning and setting up a trust, everything is an ongoing process, right? Managing it takes a lot of effort and it doesn't happen in one day. Every time a person needs more details or more advice, I think they can always go back to the money hunts for these references. And if there are families with special needs children, they can always sit down with me one on one and I can help them understand their family structuring better and kind of customize each solution according to what suits them. Guys, so for fresh content on money management, go follow the Money Hunts for amazing content every week.